Love? Never heard of it? Let's fix that. If you grew up in Scientology, love wasn't exactly part of the curriculum, unless you count admiration. But let's be real, that's not actually love. Let's see if we can break down what love really is, why it's so complicated for us, and how we can start finding it, with ourselves, with others, and maybe even our family. Plus, some tips to make this mess a little easier. Stick with me, and let's dig in. To be honest, love is basically a foreign language if you grew up in Scientology. Why, you might ask? Because it got hijacked and replaced. Thanks, LRH. Instead of love, we got admiration, affinity, and A.R.C. Affinity, reality, and communication. All quantifiable things that the founder chose in place of love, but that reduced them to transactions and exchanges. Love, otherwise known as approval, even from family, became completely conditional. You're only as good as things like production, contribution, exchange, Scientology achievements, statistics, and of course, your behavior. So stay loyal, stay obedient, and don't mess up, or you'll get reported to ethics. Or worse, you'll be cast out. And romantic love? Confusing, or sometimes non-existent. If your role models were Scientology parents, that often meant its philosophies, and even the organization itself ruled everything in your lives, including their marriage. And dating someone outside of Scientology was totally frowned on, unless you intended to convert them, but also complicated. Outsiders were kind of considered threats to your focus or your beliefs. Plus, we didn't even speak the same language, much less live on the same planet. I'm an eternal being in a small body, and you're a dilettante who probably does drugs, and you aren't even saving the planet. Gross. If you were in the Sea Org as a kid, yikes. Romantic relationships were limited, monitored, and often split apart for a bunch of reasons beyond your control. All marriages had to be approved, and your romantic options were roughly 20 people in your org, if you were lucky, and many were old enough to be your parents. Yikes again. Plus, in the Sea Org, you had to get married before you could have sex, so no test drive allowed. Or else, hello prison program. Want kids? Not approved. Pregnant? Terminate. So, you can see, love after Scientology, especially the Sea Org, is such a layered and important subject to try and tackle. Let's try to distill it into some key points, but also honor all the crazy complexity of it. Okay, for most of us raised in Scientology, love, what it is, how it feels, and how to trust it, has been obscured, minimized, or manipulated in the environment we grew up in. Most of us ended up on one of these extremes. 1. Love? Nope, not for me. Love's dangerous, it's risky, I don't need that kind of pain. Translation. You learned to avoid love because it felt like a trap. Or 2. I'll take all the love, right now. Are we soulmates yet? Why haven't you texted me back? Please don't leave. Translation. When love's rare, you cling to it like a life raft, terrified it'll disappear. 3. A handful of us have landed somewhere in the middle, carefully navigating relationships like we're defusing a bomb. 4. For some, love gets tangled up with behaviors like cheating, sabotage, or shallow connections. If you don't trust love, you might test its limits by behaving badly, even cheating, like, if I cheat, will they still care? Will they leave? Was it real in the first place? It can also feel safer to avoid deeper connection by sticking to surface-level relationships that revolve around sex or infatuation. That way, no one gets too close. You might use sabotage as a way to confirm your worst fears about love. I don't deserve love anyway, so let me ruin it before it leaves me. Serial cheating and poor behaviors might also be about control or avoiding vulnerability. When love feels dangerous or unattainable, spreading emotional energy thin can feel like protection, keeping people at a distance so no one gets too close. Others might chase validation through cheating, even mistaking attention or desire for love. But sometimes it's really about rebellion. If love was conditional and transactional in your past, cheating or acting out without abandon might feel like breaking free of the suffocating rules we were raised with, even if it's really just avoiding the risk of true connection. If sabotage or running away is your pattern, ask yourself, why do I pull away when things get real? Why do I feel safer chasing something new instead of building on or fixing what I already have? What scares me about love or commitment? Awareness is the first step. Then practice staying present in relationships instead of running or sabotaging. It's okay to say, I'm scared of getting too close. That vulnerability is where trust begins. So, how do we fix this love situation? How do we learn what love actually is and how to trust it? Separating love from sex and intimacy makes some sense here because the layers of stigma, control, and misuse of these concepts in Scientology have tangled them together in harmful ways. Let's unpack some of this confusing love stuff and get on the road toward reconnecting with it. So, what the hell is love supposed to be anyway? Scientology not only replaced love with concepts that quantify or measure connections, but it also reduced them to transactions, like levels of agreement, approval, or acceptance. Love, in contrast, an emotion, is inherently unquantifiable and unconditional at its core. Love is a feeling, not a measurable exchange. It isn't earned through proving yourself and doesn't require perfection. It's a connection that can hold space for flaws and growth. Love grows and builds in small, felt moments, not through demands or expectations. Love can be care, kindness, or compassion toward others, but especially toward yourself. If that still seems cloudy, maybe try identifying moments you feel warmth, safety, or a quiet joy, like seeing a friend smile, petting an animal, feeling the sun. Label that as a loving experience, even if it feels simple. Out here in the real world, love is about connection and care, not stats, not conditions, and not flows. It can look like feeling safe with someone, kindness, trust, even just a moment where you don't have to prove yourself. Try writing down a few moments where you felt something close to love. Some examples could be, my friend let me vent and didn't try to fix me. Or, my dog snuggled in bed with me when I felt lonely. Or, I laughed so hard I forgot about my anxiety for 30 seconds. And love doesn't have to be epic to count. So how do we rebuild and even learn some trust in love? Especially after it was withheld, weaponized, or even betrayed? Being taught that love is conditional or non-existent, especially through practices like reporting on family or relationships, creates mistrust and a real fear of vulnerability. Start with relationships where the stakes are low and the safety is high. Friends, chosen family, pets, or even mentors in survivor spaces. Let these connections be slow and unforced. Trust is built when your boundaries are honored. You can experiment with expressing small needs or truths and observing how they're received. If someone respects those, it can be a sign of safety. In Scientology, saying no wasn't an option, but in healthy love, boundaries aren't punishable offenses, they're necessary. Practice setting tiny boundaries in safe relationships. Hey, I can't make it tonight. I need some rest. Or, I'm not comfortable talking about that yet. If someone respects that, that's safe. If you find yourself pulling away or clinging too tightly to love, notice that as a survival response rather than a failure. Be curious. What feels unsafe about this? Your knee-jerk reaction may be a fear response that protected you as a kid when you needed it. Big love can feel scary when you've never seen it done right. So start with the safest, smallest connections. A friend who listens without judgment, someone who accepts you as you are, heck, even your dog counts. I mean, no one loves like a dog, right? And then how exactly do we detangle love from duty, control, or shame? Let's be honest, Scientology also replaced authentic connection with duty, loyalty to the group, and performance. The need to earn love through compliance can make it really hard to see love as something given freely, because growing up, it wasn't. Try separating love from obligation. You don't have to deserve or perform for love. Try asking yourself, who accepts me even when I'm messy, imperfect, or uncertain? Or, where do I feel free to be myself without needing to measure up? The messaging you absorbed as a kid may still linger. For example, loving someone is selfish, or being loved means I owe them something. Try challenging these thoughts, writing these thoughts down and reframing them like love doesn't demand, it invites, etc. can help. Self-love is actually your foundation, and that was built on quicksand in Scientology. Like, how can you accept love from another if you don't even feel it about yourself? Instead, maybe you think you're not worthy, not perfect, lack confidence, or feel like a fake or a failure, only pretending to be enough. That's just Scientology echoing, though. It's not true. When love was absent or conditional in childhood, the idea of loving yourself unconditionally can feel impossible. And if you've spent your life being told you're weak, bad, or defective, self-love can feel really awkward. But it's not about grand gestures. It's about small, kind acts for yourself. Try caring for yourself like you would someone you love. Start by asking what care would look like: rest, nourishment, hobbies, exercise, self-acceptance. Imagine you're a little kid again. What would you say to them if they felt scared or sad? Example: you're not bad, you're not broken, you deserve love just as you are. In fact, try saying that to yourself right now. Listen for and try to recognize the voice of criticism in your own head. If you hear, "you don't deserve love," or "you'll lose it," that's Scientology's legacy, not truth. Try replacing it with gentler reminders. "I'm learning love. I don't have to get it right all at once." You can try some reparenting moments. Sounds weird, but it actually works. Because our parental love was disrupted, reparenting yourself, giving yourself the love, encouragement, and nurturing you needed, can really help rebuild that foundation. So how do we navigate our tricky attachment styles? And what are those anyway? Attachment styles explain how we connect, or don't connect, with other people, based on what we learned growing up. It's like your relationship operating system, and sometimes the software is a little glitchy. Like, are you the type who clings like a koala, bolts like a sprinter, or somehow manages to vibe in the middle, if you're lucky? And that, my friend, is your attachment style in action. Let's do a quick deep dive into the 4 main styles. 1. Secure, the unicorn of attachment styles. You love me? Cool, I love you too. Let's make dinner. Unbothered, balanced, chill. They grew up feeling safe and supported. Their parents probably hugged them just enough. They're the people who say, "Let's talk about our feelings," and actually mean it. Ugh, show-offs. 2. Anxious, the human Velcro. Do you still love me? Are you mad? Why didn't you text me back? Are we breaking up? Constant worry about being left behind. This was caused by inconsistent caregiving. Sometimes they got love, sometimes they didn't. So now they're like, "Love me, but please don't disappear." Their text history is 90% blue bubbles, with no replies. 3. Avoidant, the emotional escape artist. Feelings, you. Commitment, gotta go. They keep people at arm's length because closeness, danger. Their caregivers, who were emotionally unavailable, taught them, "You're on your own, kid." So now they're like, "Love? Nah, I'm good." Their ideal date is alone, preferably with their phone on Do Not Disturb. 4. Fearful avoidant, the walking paradox. I want love, but don't come too close. Actually, please stay. Wait, never mind. They're both anxious and avoidant at the same time, a real emotional roller coaster. They experience trauma, chaos, or unpredictability growing up. Love feels both good and dangerous at the same time. They're like a cat. Pet me. No, don't touch me. I hate you. Let's cuddle. So what does this actually look like in our relationships? Secure person. I like you. Let's work through this, like adults. Anxious person. Why haven't you texted me back? Avoidant person. Deletes number and moves to a remote cabin. Fearful avoidant person. I need you. Wait, never mind. Actually, come back. The good news is that our attachment styles aren't our destiny. You can totally grow, heal, and shift towards secure attachment with a little work on self-awareness to recognize your patterns, practice trying new ways of connecting, even if it's scary, and therapy. Seriously, it works wonders. So, us survivors can often either avoid love entirely as dangerous, or dive into it with obsession and dependency, or even sabotage. These are just survival patterns, our attempts to keep love close or avoid its hurt. Is your style slow and steady? If you fear love, you can approach it gradually. Relationships don't need to be all or nothing. Think of connection as something you build together, not something that just happens. Knowing your patterns can help you navigate relationships with more clarity and self-compassion. If you pull away, remind yourself that closeness doesn't have to be suffocating. Love can coexist with independence. If you cling tightly, remind yourself that love isn't earned by proving your worth or controlling someone else's presence. It's built on trust and choice. Learning about your attachment style is really like having a user manual for your love life, but with fewer diagrams and way more feelings. Ultimately, love is about feeling safe to be yourself and free to grow. This is the opposite of what we experienced in Scientology. Now that we're out here in the real world, we get to define what love means to us. Crazy, right? And we don't need anyone's permission. Who knew? Without anyone else's expectations, try asking yourself, what do I value in loving relationships? What feels like love to me? Safety, freedom, joy, acceptance? What kind of love do I want to give to myself and others? By rewriting what love means to you, you can begin to experience it as something nurturing and expansive, rather than something threatening or conditional. Here's the hopeful part. Love, real love, exists in its purest forms outside the walls of Scientology. Love can look like laughing uncontrollably with a trusted friend, sharing a quiet moment of safety with someone who sees you, loving someone without needing anything in return, feeling joy in your own company, receiving care when you're hurting and knowing it's safe to accept it. Meanwhile, love is a process, not a goal. You don't have to figure it all out at once. Step by step, you can build a version of love that feels safe, nurturing, and real, first within yourself and then with others. Love is messy, imperfect, and beautifully human. Pretty much everything Scientology taught us to avoid. You don't have to measure it, earn it, or fear it. Start small, trust the safe people, and most of all, be kind to yourself. Love is possible, even for us. If any of this hit home for you, don't worry. You're not stuck, you're not defective, and you're not alone. Stick around, and let's figure out how to upgrade our love software. You got this, and remember, we're in it together.